I said I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do any React content to the new Archer commanders until the full details were released. But I gotta react to this. So stick around to learn more about this new Archer commander coming to Rise of Kingdoms. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms gameplay episode from your very own Chappy Gaming. Today we are going to be going over the brand new Archer commander that was just teased by Lilith about 5 minutes ago, probably a little later by the time you're seeing this. And we're going to be going through the talents of this commander, the skills of this commander, who they remind me of, which should give you a pretty good indication of what I'm thinking, and whether I think this commander is going to break the meta, how they're going to affect the game, and generally my thoughts on whether you should be saving up your gold heads for this commander or whether you want to use them on William Wallace instead. So let's dive into it, shall we? So first things first, this Archer commander has a really interesting talent setup. You've got Archer, versatility, and skill, which is not the best situation, right? Typically we have Archer, versatility, and support. You have Archer, versatility, and skill on Zhuge Liang, which is pretty normal, right? We all run Zhuge Liang primary. So what are we looking at here, right? This commander doesn't seem all that different from a talent standpoint. Boudica's also Archer, versatility, skill. So we already have our talent tree. If you guys want to see that, I can pull that up for you right now, actually. So this is the talent tree that I'm running on my Zhuge Liang. Let me show you that. So if we pull this up, you can see this is what we're running today. For that same exact talent tree, I expect it would probably be about the same. But overall, that's not a big deal. But it is a little weird, and you'll see why when we get into the actual details of this commander. So let's start with skill number 1. Skill number 1, target type, single target. Already not a fan. We got 2 amazing AoE commanders, and you're giving us a single target one. Fine, whatever. If serving as a primary commander, deals direct damage to target troop, probably somewhere in the area of like 2,000 damage factor. They didn't tell us, but that's in line with the other commanders that we have. If serving as a secondary commander, Mighty heals a large portion of their troops' slightly wounded units, and deals a percentage of this skill's heal strength as true damage to a target troop and temporarily reduces its march speed. So what is Lilith telling us off the bat? This commander is not going to be a primary commander. You want this as a secondary commander. Mighty healing is their new thing. I think they're trying to get us to use a different formation that promotes healing. They just rolled out one that I think should actually help. Let me pull that up for you guys actually real quick, because they did do this very intentionally. It was not a coincidence that they're now rolling out a commander with Mighty healing, right? I think that we knew this was going to happen. And it is the circle formation that is specific for healing. All healing this user's troops receives is increased by 5%. So this is not a coincidence. Interesting that they didn't have anything that benefits the Delta formation, but whatever. So we have that, but what does this actually mean, right? So Mighty healing, as we know from all of Omniarch's videos on it, shout out to Omniarch, is a massive heal that a troop's going to get. We're talking like more than what Richard's giving you today. It's a new functionality within the game. Now, I do think that there are some interesting commanders that are going to totally break this skill, but that's okay. Now, what's interesting here, though, is it deals a percentage of this skill's heal strength as true damage to a target troop and temporarily reduces its march speed. With a lot of the skills that we've seen in the game so far, you see these effects have a scaling based upon the units that you have in your march, right? If you have 200,000 units, you're going to get a larger amount of heal. That's how it works today. I expect that this is not going to be changing with Mighty heals. But what is interesting here is this new concept of true damage. We saw it with the previous Archer that I didn't do any videos on because I don't like speculating. But true damage is not affected by damage bonuses, the attacking troops attack attribute or the defending troops defense attribute. This is a really interesting mechanic, because what it's going to mean is even if you have a lot of defense, even if you have great equipment, you're still going to take a ton of damage from this troop, which is concerning. I don't know. We'll see how it works out in game. It does make me a little nervous. this mighty healing thing is also really interesting though. Now, on to skill number 2. You've got this commander's archer units gain 10, probably 30% health and 20% march speed or something to that effect. That's pretty on brand. 30% health is huge though. I'd be more surprised if they didn't give you 20 health, 20 march speed. We'll see. I'm not going to speculate on that. That said, archers need march speed and archers need health, so not a bad skill number 2. On to skill number 3. This commander's troop takes less normal damage. That's great. However, I feel like that's not something archers really need all that much. Like, Luce is not going to be attacking archers, and that's normal damage. It includes smite damage. No one else is dealing smite damage other than infantry today. Okay. Whenever this commander's troop uses an active skill, it mighty heals up to 3 nearby allied or friendly troops, including this commander's troop, for a large portion of their slightly wounded units. This skill has a cooldown time, probably between 10 and 30 seconds, depending upon how big this heal is. This is interesting. Let's go back real quick. This commander has skill. That's a support skill. We should not have skill as the talent there. That's bizarre to me. I really like this. I think it's a great idea. Mighty heals could be a huge benefit. But I don't know how much we're actually going to see it take effect in game. And there's a very good reason why I have my doubts. Now, if this does give me like 20k slightly wounded back, it could make a really big difference. Now, the other thing is if you are using the support tree on this commander, which honestly I would probably use like Hermann Prime as primary run support tree with this commander behind them, because Hermann's probably going to deal a fair amount of damage, and then you also have a debuffer and a buffer in the same march. Speculation. However, this is an interesting idea. Now, there are additional things that we'll see here in terms of how this healing mechanic works, but this could be beneficial. Maybe. Let's look at skill number 4. This commander's troop takes less damage. While this commander's troop is on the map, whenever it's reduced to a certain number of units remaining, it's mighty healed for a large portion of its slightly wounded units. We love that. So when you get down to 50,000 units, it'll heal you back up to 150. That'd be really cool. For a period of time after this, their troop loses attack and takes less damage. So this is interesting because it's almost like Lilith is saying, hey, you healed, now get out of battle, right? Because you're going to be losing your attack. Now, archers have a lot of really good attack equipment, so I'm not too worried about losing attack. I am curious how much this is going to be. I'm not a big fan of commanders debuffing their own march, but the taking less damage is also really nice. And we did say potentially pairing with Hermann. Again, speculation. But if you do that and you're taking less damage, then it does mean you can still debuff targets, so I'm not opposed to it. Now, this can trigger once per hour. That sucks, because what it really means is you only get this once. And you can run back to your city. Realistically, you're not going to have a march out for an hour. No one does. But if you run back to your city and then you redeploy, you can trigger this again. So that's fine. Now, as for expertise, and this is why I was hinting at that third skill. Whenever this commander's troop heals a troop, the healed troop temporarily gains defense and deals more normal damage. Between this and skill number 3, this suddenly becomes really interesting to me, and is honestly what inspired me to make this video. When this commander's troop uses an active skill, it mighty heals up to 3 units. So that's just a standard active skill. Now, if you remember, when we're running this commander as secondary, we're also going to be dealing additional mighty heal to its own units, which means you're going to be staying alive for a fairly long time, which if you are using Hermann as primary, you probably want because you want that debuff cycling. Honestly, I don't know how frequently you're triggering that expertise of Hermann today. But what's interesting here is you're healing up to 3 nearby allied or friendly troops. And if you have Luce with William Wallace in your march as part of your 3 troops, then you're also going to be dealing more normal attack damage. I expect this is like 10% normal attack damage. That seems to be in line with what Lilith has been doing in the game, and maybe like, I don't know, 15% defense. It's fine. But what's interesting here is this commander really screams support commander to me. But why do you have skill as the talent tree? That's just bizarre to me. So I think this commander is really interesting. Healing makes me nervous though, because healing also means that there's a pretty good chance you're going to end up filling your hospital more than you actually intended to. That's why no one feels Richard, because Richard is not particularly good and he heals. That said, people do like the healing factor that you get with Ho Chu Bing. So, maybe it's a good thing. I'm not sure. I do like the fact that this commander is a buffer to your other marches. That's what we like to see. It gives you good synergy. Now, I wish that this heal would actually trigger without you having to have a full rage cycle. That would be cool, but it doesn't seem like that's an option. I'm also a little bit nervous about that skill cooldown time. If it's 30 seconds to heal all your allies, that's a long time. Your march is probably going to be dead. Now, who does this remind me of? And this is a big question because it also lends itself to why I'm thinking this commander's not meta. So if we come in game, there's one commander that immediately comes out to me as someone who maybe would be a similar comparison. And you can guess in the comments right now. Let's see. It's this guy. Constantine. We've seen a similar mechanic, field healing. If this commander's troop is down 50% units, it recovers a large portion of its slightly wounded units. That sounds an awful lot like a skill that we just saw. Does it not? Look at skill number 4. Just look at skill number 4. Sounds very familiar. So that's an interesting comparison that we have there. It also has a cooldown of 1 hour that happens to reset if you enter a resource point or go home. And you also end up with a debuff after that. You take less damage and your healing is reduced. So we've seen this mechanic before. In fact, I would kind of expect that Constantine is a mighty healer. Now, I believe Constantine also has a very interesting situation here, which says that for the next 5 seconds, up to 5 nearby allied or friendly troops take 4% less damage. So we do see a similar commander that is buffing your allies. So this isn't that unusual, right? We've seen a commander like this before where you're going to be healing, you're going to be healing yourself, you're potentially going to be buffing your allies. Constantine is that commander. And with the support tree, I do think that this mighty healing mechanic could be really interesting. If we come over here, we could take a look. And it's really because of this skill. Any healing this commander's troop receives is increased by 9%. Now, I do wonder if you're already running a separate support march, if you're going to be getting an additional benefit on top of mighty healing. I would expect that you do. Now, there are a couple other things that make this particularly interesting. The support tree generally really does favor healing. It favors rage cycling. It does make a march a little bit tankier, which if you have a healer in the field, you probably want. Now, I do like the idea of putting this behind Herman because Herman is going to deal a lot of skill damage and he's going to be debuffing. So that's who I'm immediately speculating. If you do that and you split Herman, I expect you could put probably Zhuge Liang back with Boudica if you already have her maxed. And you could probably put Herman with this new commander, and there's your 2 archer units, right? That's a perfectly fine setup. If you guys think that you're going to be pairing this commander with anyone else, let me know in the comments section below. Personally, I think this is Constantine 2.0, which in my opinion also means this commander will not be meta. They may be useful, but I don't think they're going to be breaking the meta because they don't deal a lot of damage. All they do is heal, which is great, but again, you need to have a nuker in front of them. And if you are putting Herman with this commander and you're breaking Herman and Zug up, you are taking a lot of your skill damage bonus away from your Zug. So that's my 2 cents on this commander. I know I didn't want to speculate, but if you've enjoyed, do hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right-hand corner. Drop a like on the video. It helps me out a ton. Thank you all. Shappy out.